Yo, what's going on, guys, and welcome back. Today we are doing a video on backups. So this is something that a lot of people think they understand and know, but it's almost never implemented properly. And so if you are one of those people that think I already know this stuff, backups are easy, done and done, okay, that's great, but it has to be implemented properly, which is almost always done incorrectly or negligently, in the sense that people stop caring about it, and then that's when the issue comes. Okay, so there's a couple of things that we're going to cover. We're going to cover how to do a backup on Windows, how to do one on Linux. I'm not going to do one on Mac OS because they have their own, and it's called a Timekeeper or whatever it's called, Time Machine, I think is what it's called. They have their own. I'm not going to do that one. And then we're going to do a cloud solution as well. But the main thing that I want you guys to take away from this is that backups are an absolute must if you are worried at all about your system and files. Okay. The other thing to keep in mind is if you're a small company, medium company that can't afford large scale solutions, you need to understand backups yourself and how to implement them, because otherwise you're really, really risking a lot here. Okay. So before we go ahead and dive right into the video, guys, please go ahead and hit that sub button, hit that like button. I know I ask every video and I know it gets annoying, but that is really the only way that we can keep doing this and that the channel grows. So I really appreciate it. It's free. It takes 2 seconds. If you guys can click that, I thank you. I really appreciate it. All right, so let's hop into it. So Windows 11, I'm on Windows 11. Windows 10 is very, very similar. That's why I pulled up the support documents for you guys, so you can see here. We're going to go to supportmicrosoft.com, and you could just do a quick Google and figure out how to back this up. But all you're going to do is you're going to go to Control Panel, and you can see when I pull up Control Panel, it says Set up a backup, or you can create a system repair disk or a system image. You want to set up a backup, okay? So once you set up that backup, we'll go ahead and minimize that. You can see right here, here is the backups that's actually going on. So sorry, my freaking dryer is beeping and it was throwing me off. Anyway, so you can see here that it's going to ask you to pick a drive. You can put up a network drive. You can set up a regular, some people put it on USB, some people put it on external hard drive, whatever you're going to put it on, save it on a network, whatever you want to do. That's great. Now understand the difference between a on-site and an off-site backup. Okay, the big difference is on-site means it's still on your network, it's still sitting physically in the same location as any other machines there. So for instance, a lot of people say, well, that's okay, like if my machine gets hacked. So this is going to be for each individual person, but like some people, like I said, say that's okay, if my machine gets hacked, I can just grab it and switch it over and back it up. The problem with that, okay, lies with, let's say a tornado comes through and takes out the building. Okay, well, now for that building you don't have backups because your backups are now destroyed with the rest of your machines. Okay, that's why you keep off-site backups or cloud backups, which are still off-site. Okay, so keep that in mind. So you would select this, and then you'd set up a schedule and things like that for the backups. I'm not going to do that because that is not what that's for, my external hard drive. So let's go ahead and back out. Now, the other big thing, there's a couple of takeaways that you really need to think about before implementing backups. You need to understand what the different backups are, okay? So there's full backups, and that's what most of you are probably thinking in your head when you think of a backup. So you're thinking of a full backup. A full backup is actually one where they're backing up all of your files, all of your settings, all of everything, okay? That's not what you necessarily want to do. There's nothing wrong with that, doing it, especially if it's like, oh, I'm backing up once a month, whatever, and it's like one machine, maybe two machines. But if you start backing up full backups on quite a few machines, like let's say you're a small company, you have 10, 20 machines, and you start doing full backups weekly or something, you're going to start filling a lot of space, okay? And you have to pay for that space. So what you want to think about is there's full backups, differential, and incremental. Now, full backups, like I said, it's backing everything up. Okay, then you have differential. Differential, what it does is it runs us through and it only saves the difference between the last full backup. So let's say you took a full backup and then you installed a new application. It's now going to just save that new application because that's all that's changed since the full backup. Hopefully that makes sense. Then there's incremental. Incremental is very similar to differential, except for incremental builds on itself. So it might take a backup every single day, and it only saves what's changed since yesterday's. Now the problem with that is when you go to restore it. To restore an incremental, you have to start with the full and restore them all the way up, right? That's just how it works because you're restoring all those settings. But with differential, you only have the two. You have the full and what's changed since then, and that's it. So keep that in mind. You need to set up a good schedule. That's the big thing, is setting up a good schedule of, okay, let's say I want to take a good backup, a full backup every month, and then I want to take differentials every week, and then incrementals every day, right? That could be a schedule. Now, that's not necessarily a good schedule for everybody. I'm just saying you need to find what schedule works for you, how much storage you have, how much space you have, all of that stuff. The other big thing to pay attention to is, what do you want to back up? Now, if you're a lot of the people that are watching my channel probably are sitting there going, well, I want to back up my computer, because a lot of you guys are either interested in offensive or somewhat interested in defensive, but haven't worked in enterprise environments. And that's great that you want to back them up, and that's the point. But the big thing is, when you're a small company, or let's say even you build a home lab and you want to back that stuff up, you can't just always back everything up. You just can't, because number one, you don't have the space. Number two, the other big thing is, usually enterprise companies and large corporations, even medium-sized companies or smaller companies, buy Windows licenses. They don't just go and buy like you and me do, where we go buy a PC and we buy $100 license for Windows. They have a licensing key where they can actually just spin up machine, right? And they have the key, they spin it up, and they're good, right? So they don't have to keep buying a key every single time they do it. Now, the point of this is, let's say your machine gets hacked. I can just delete the entire machine and put a new image on it, meaning I can put a new Windows on it, everything's fine, right? So if I can do that, if I have the capability of that, which a lot of people watching this that have smaller companies or whatever, you probably can do that. You can probably image your machines the way you want. Well, because of that, you may not need to back everything up, right? If you have a good baseline image, if you have a good baseline of what should be on that machine, and you can just put it on there, why back all that up every month, right? So you may only be backing up their personal drive, or you may only be backing up their critical drives. Maybe you have like an HR employee who puts payroll information in this, right? Well, you may only be backing that up, or etc. There's all kinds of reasons, but it's individual to what you're trying to do. If it's just a home use, you may only want to back up, your personal folders, because it's just a Windows machine. If someone hacks it, you may be able to just restore it back to regular Windows, restore back to factory default, right? So you want to know what you're backing up. Some people it might make sense to back up the full operating system. Some people it might not. So make sure you know what you're trying to back up, and then on top of knowing what, make sure you have a good schedule set, because it's going to come in extremely important when time comes that you need these backups. Now, a lot of you might be asking me why it's a big deal to take backups. If anything happens to your machine, this is not just for hackers, this is not just for defenders, this is anything happens to your machine. How many times have you seen a Microsoft update that comes out and your machine blue screens and it restores back, right? Well, you're hoping that Microsoft has a decent backup for you already saved, because Microsoft does do that sometimes if you have it set up. But if they don't, well, you just lost everything and there's nothing you can do, right? It'll try and build it back, but sometimes it can't. So that's another example where maybe an update breaks it. Maybe you add a new application that breaks it. Maybe anything that can happen. Maybe, like I said, a tornado comes through, a hurricane hits, a power strike or a lightning strike hits and surges your computer. There's a million things that can happen where you might need that backup, okay? So we covered how to do the Windows backup. We've covered these pretty easy steps. You can just go to support Microsoft. That's easy. Another tool for Linux is Duplicity. Duplicity is very simple. Linux is also one of those, because everything's a file structure, it's pretty easy to take up your own backup, but Duplicity makes it even easier for you. So you can go to duplicity.us and you can see they have documentation. They have everything you need here to actually download it. And then once you have it downloaded, you can see they're showing you they support all of these ways to actually remove the backup. So let's say they have Google Drive here. You can have this go automatically into your Google Drive, right? So stuff like that is really handy. So if you have a Linux server, maybe you have a web server that's Apache or something like that, and you want to back it up, so that way if anything happens, I can just restore it and I have my web server back up. We're good to go, right? Well, you can just have it saved in your Google Drive. You can have it. I mean, this is for, keep in mind, the techniques and procedures that I'm covering for this series is for small companies, okay? These are free resources. So there's going to be a million of you that comment sitting, well, I hope there's a million comments, but there's not. But there's going to be a bunch of you there thinking in your head, there's other backup solutions. This isn't the only one we need. You're right. You're 100% right. But these are free and these are easy to implement, easy to install, right? So that's why we're covering it. So this is for Linux, okay? So Duplicity. Keep in mind, Duplicity is an on-prem backup solution, meaning it's going to save it locally or on a network share or whatever. You can export it. You can do that. You can, like I said, you can move it wherever you want with these protocols, but it's going to automatically take the backups and save them somewhere locally. So it's important you know the difference because you have to move them to an off-site area if you want to do off-site backups. Okay, then the next one we're going to cover is called Backblaze. This one automatically takes it and puts it in the cloud, okay? So these automatically put it in the cloud. Now, here's where you've got to be careful when you're running small businesses or even, doing it yourself or whatever. Yes, these tools are great, these cloud-based tools, but pay attention to their licensing agreements, their privacy policies, all of that, and see what they can do with that data, because you might be taking backups of your data and not realizing that they're authorized to do whatever they want with it. They can look at it, they can sell it, they can read it, whatever. Now, that's very rare that someone's going to put in there directly that they can read it and access it, especially when they encrypt it, but it is possible that they might be selling maybe your email address and phone number, maybe your contact information, maybe your address, that type of stuff that's not quite PII, but it's pretty good information that spammers can use for mailing lists and stuff like that. Those things can get sold on these sites. Excuse me. So make sure you're paying attention to the privacy policy if you want to use it. But what Backblaze does is as soon as you download it, it's going to start reading your files, your backups, and it's going to put them into their cloud database. So that way you can start having a backup solution. And then if something happens, if anyone attacks, whatever, if you get ransomware, if the tornado hits, whatever, like I said, they're going to allow you to just start restoring from the backups and you're safe and good to go. Now, those are the 3 solutions I recommend right now. There's a bunch of them out there, but these are 3 easy solutions, one for Windows, one for Linux, and then one cloud-based. Now, the big thing here to take away is here's where everybody messes up, okay? Everybody. This is the most important thing I can say in this freaking video, okay? Everybody has a good backup plan, okay? What I mean by that is anybody can come up, look at your data, figure out what's important to you, and say, okay, we need to back this up on these dates with this type of backup and be good to go. Not everybody does what I'm about to tell you. And so what happens is all this is good and dandy, and then nobody checks on it, okay? So what happens is maybe a backup got messed up, a month ago, and it stopped the backups from continuing because an incremental got messed up or something. And so now your backups aren't continuing. Nobody's checking on it. Then you get attacked or then something happens and you go to restore it and you're like, oh, we don't have a backup until, 2 months ago. 2 months ago is our newest backup. That's where things happen. And this happens all the time, okay? Now, the other part where people mess up is they might keep up on the backups and say they're good. But how many of you maybe once a month actually go to your backups and just restore one just make sure you know the process, make sure you know the procedures, and make sure it works? Because let me tell you, I've restored a lot of backups, and guess what? It's very, very common that you might restore a backup from, let's say, yesterday, and it doesn't come up, or something's not right. A file is missing on it that should be on it. This happens, whatever. That's where you need to go, okay, well, let's restore the day before and see if it shows up, or let's see if it fixes it, or whatever. That's why you need to make sure you're practicing your procedures. You need to go into your backups, restore one. You don't have to sit there and restore your whole network every freaking month or whatever, but just make sure you know how to do it. Make sure when you do it, it works properly. The procedure works great. It's easy. Make sure your off-site backups aren't they don't take 6 weeks to get, right? Because sometimes that might happen. You might put them off site somewhere, as let's say you're a small company and you're taking physical backups, and they're in a storage space somewhere, whatever, it doesn't matter, but that place is closed on the weekends and you didn't realize that because you never gone there on the weekend, and now you go to get your backups on a Saturday and oh crap, we can't pick them up till Monday. We're in trouble, right? These are things that need to be thought, and these are things that you need to be kind of considering when doing these backups as well, is make sure I'm practicing my restoration practices, because otherwise you could really run into a situation where you have to explain to somebody, oof, I lost all your data and I actually can't get it back because I thought I was taking backups, but I was, and I can't restore them. It's not working, whatever. You do not want to be in that situation. It's so easy to prepare. It's so easy to restore these backups every so often to make sure that it works. Make sure you know what you're doing. And it's so simple to come up with a good plan, a good schedule, and good backups. It's not so simple to keep implementing it because people get complacent and people will sit there and do these and think, I've got it, no big deal. And then it just slowly creeps out of their control because they're not paying attention. So hopefully you guys like this. I know this one didn't have as much hands-on, which I know you guys like that, but I want to make sure that people understand the importance of backups and understand how vital these are, and also how simple they can be, but how easy it is to lose control of these. So I want to make sure that you guys are also getting tools to defend against hackers, not just pen test tools, okay? I want to make sure that we're building up a repertoire for everyone in cyber, not just simply pen test focused and forget about ways to prevent attacks as well. Hopefully you guys liked it. Thank you guys so much and hope you have a great day.